They say love has no age. But when 72-year-old Eleanor Hartley fell in love again, no one could have predicted how it would end. It was spring in Somerset Falls, a quiet town known for its tree-lined streets and elderly charm. Cherry blossoms bloomed like clouds of pink over every sidewalk. A town where people left their doors unlocked, where neighbors still brought casseroles after a funeral, where Eleanor had lived for over 4 decades. She was a widow. Her husband, Frank, had passed away 5 years ago, cancer. A slow, brutal decline. She nursed him at home until the very end. After he was gone, her house felt hollow. The clock ticked louder. The days stretched longer. Eleanor was graceful, silver-haired, always in pearls. She loved crossword puzzles, gardening, and classical music. She was the type of woman who sent handwritten birthday cards. The type who never missed Sunday service. But loneliness can chip away at even the strongest souls. And then he arrived. His name was Devin Marks. 29 years old. Strikingly handsome, with green eyes that didn't blink long enough. He said he was new in town, freelance photographer, just passing through. But Eleanor met him not in a cafe, or church, or library. She met him online. Yes, online. Her granddaughter had helped her set up a profile on a dating site, just for fun. A joke at first. Something to make her smile. But then, there was Devin. His message came late one evening. "You have the kindest eyes I've ever seen. Mind if I say hello?" Eleanor blushed. She hadn't blushed in years. They began chatting. Once a day, then twice. Then it became nightly calls that stretched into midnight. He was charming, attentive. He asked questions no one else asked anymore. "What's your favorite memory of your husband? What's the best thing about growing older? Do you believe in soulmates?" He listened. Or at least, he sounded like he did. And Eleanor? She felt seen, heard, alive. The first time they met in person, he brought her daisies. Not roses. Daisies. Because she once told him they were her favorite. She wore a soft yellow dress. He told her she looked radiant. They walked through the park. He took photos of ducks and of her laughing. Later, over tea, he held her hand across the table. His touch was warm. Too warm. Neighbors raised eyebrows. A few whispered. But Eleanor didn't care. For the first time in years, she had someone to share breakfast with. To talk to at night. To hold her hand as they watched old movies. And maybe, just maybe, to love again. But not everyone believed it was real. Her daughter, Mara, was concerned. Very concerned. "Mom, he's younger than me. Don't you think that's a red flag? He says he's a photographer. Have you seen any of his work? He moved into your house already?" Eleanor brushed it off. She said she was tired of being lonely. Tired of second-guessing happiness. But Mara noticed things. Like how Eleanor stopped attending her book club. Or how she no longer returned calls right away. Or how Devin always answered the door, even when it was family. Eleanor started dressing differently. Wearing brighter lipstick. Higher heels. She lost weight. Some said she looked happier. Others said thinner. Worn. One night, Mara found her mother sitting quietly in the living room. Lights off. Just staring at the window. "Mom, are you okay?" Eleanor smiled. A weak, tired smile. "He's just intense sometimes. That's all." She didn't say more. And Mara didn't push. But something inside her chilled. A few weeks later, Devin posted a photo of the two of them on social media. Caption: "Age is just a number. Love is real." He added a link to a GoFundMe page. Title: "Help Eleanor and Devin build their forever home." $3,400 was raised in the first week. Eleanor didn't know. When she found out, she laughed. Nervously. "It's sweet, really. He just wants us to have a nice place." But behind that smile, was that fear? Then came the phone call. It was 2:17 a.m. Mara answered in a panic. Eleanor's voice was shaking. "I think I made a mistake," she whispered. "He's not who I thought he was." Then the line went dead. And that's where the Rayall story begins. Because what happened next was darker than anyone could have imagined. Love brought her back to life. But it also led her to death. And Devin Marks? He wasn't just a charming stranger. He was something else entirely. Devin Marks wasn't born in Somerset Falls. He wasn't raised in any small town. He came from nowhere. And he brought nowhere with him. The day he met Eleanor, he told her a story. About growing up in Vermont. Living in a cabin in the woods. A mother who taught him how to fish. A father who died young. He said he traveled the world. Europe. South America. Always with a camera slung around his neck. He said he loved stories. And that's what made him fall for Eleanor. You have the kind of soul that could fill 1,000 pages. But here's the thing. There were no pages. No family records. No photography portfolio. No college degree. Nothing. Because Devin Marks had spent his 20s doing something else entirely. In another state, under another name, he had been arrested twice. Once for fraud. Once for aggravated harassment. But those records? Buried under an alias. And expunged, thanks to a clever lawyer and a sympathetic judge. Devin had a talent. A gift. He could read people. He knew how to spot the cracks. And he knew how to pour himself right into them. With Eleanor, he moved quickly. Too quickly. Within 3 weeks, he had a drawer in her bedroom. Within 2 months, he had her passwords. She called it love. He called it leverage. He began isolating her, slowly. Casually. Mara doesn't understand you like I do. Your friends are just jealous. Look how alone they are. You don't need them. You have me. Eleanor didn't notice it at first. The distance. The silence. The missing pieces of her life. But her house changed. The music stopped playing. The garden became overgrown. She started canceling bridge nights. And when people asked, she always smiled. A strange, forced smile. We're just enjoying our time together. But there were signs. Small ones. Disturbing ones. A neighbor, Mrs. Fletcher, saw Devin late one night, rummaging through Eleanor's mailbox. When she waved at him, he didn't wave back. Just stared. Another time, the mailman noticed Eleanor's checks were missing from outgoing envelopes. 3 in a row. Each one later reported lost. And still no one acted. Because how do you accuse someone of charm? Devin knew how to wear masks. He was polite to store clerks. Chatted with the post office lady. Even joined Eleanor at church, once. But behind closed doors, he became something else. Controlling. Cold. Calculating. He began tracking her spending. Told her what to wear. Monitored her phone calls. When Mara visited, Devin always stayed close. Too close. She once caught him reading her mother's journal. When she asked about it, he smiled. Just wanted to know her better. But there was something in his eyes. Something hollow. One day, Eleanor went to the bank. Alone. She asked to change her account password. She asked the teller to flag any large withdrawals. But Devin found out. That night, a neighbor heard shouting. Loud. Ugly. Objects breaking. The next day, Eleanor had a bruise on her arm. She told Mara it was a fall. I tripped on the rug. But there was no rug. Meanwhile, Devin had plans. Big ones. He began looking at properties. Far outside of town. Remote cabins. Acres of land. He said it was their retirement dream. He said they needed to escape all the noise. But what noise? Eleanor's life had already gone quiet. Still she nodded. She said yes. Because at 72, after losing the love of your life, you begin to fear losing anything else. Even if that anything is toxic. Then came the life insurance. It was Devin's idea. He convinced Eleanor that it was a smart move. That he'd be the beneficiary just in case. She hesitated. But he was persuasive. Too persuasive. She signed the papers. That night, he brought home champagne. She didn't drink. He insisted. Somewhere, deep inside, she must have known that something was wrong. That this wasn't love. Not real love. But she was already in too deep. Her bank accounts. Her passwords. Her house. He had access to it all. And Devin? He never once said he loved her. Not really. He said things like, "You're the best thing that ever happened to me. I couldn't do this without you. You make me feel seen." But never, "I love you." Not once. Because love wasn't what he was after. 2 weeks before she died, Eleanor made a phone call. Not to Mara. Not to a friend. She called a lawyer. Asked about changing her will. Said she wanted to correct a mistake. The appointment was set for Tuesday morning. But on Monday night, something happened. Something no one could undo. By the time Mara got the call, it was already too late. Eleanor Hartley, beloved mother, grandmother, widow, was gone. And Devin? Nowhere to be found. Until they found his camera. And what was on it? Changed everything. Before the sirens. Before the yellow tape. Before the front page headlines. There were whispers. It began with a lunch. Eleanor, Mara, and Mara's daughter, Ava, sat at the old bistro downtown. The one with creaky booths and checkered tablecloths. They ordered grilled cheese and tomato soup. Like they always did. Eleanor barely touched her food. She stared out the window most of the time. And when she spoke, her voice was smaller than usual. Devin doesn't like it when I talk to people too much. Mara nearly dropped her spoon. Excuse me? What does that mean? Eleanor quickly changed the subject. Said she was just tired. Said it was nothing. But Ava saw it. A flicker in her grandmother's eyes. Fear. At home, Mara started digging. She Googled Devon. Every name, every detail she could remember. Nothing. She called the local chamber of commerce. No business license. No photography studio. She checked public records. No property owned. No rental under his name. It was like he didn't exist. At least, not officially. So Mara asked him. Point blank. It was a Sunday afternoon. Eleanor was in the kitchen, making lemon bars. Devon stood by the window, scrolling through his phone. Where are you from, Devon? He smiled. Didn't look up. Up north. We're up north. All over. His answers were smooth. Too smooth. Like something he'd rehearsed. Mara pressed harder. You said you worked in Argentina. What kind of work? Freelance. Mostly weddings. Do you have a portfolio? He finally looked up. That smile was gone. What is this? An interrogation? Mara didn't flinch. Just trying to get to know the man who moved into my mother's house. He stepped closer. Too close. Maybe you should worry about your own house. That night, Mara told Eleanor everything. She begged her to be careful, to think clearly, to step back and see what was happening. But Eleanor defended him. He's kind. He's had a hard life. You just don't know him. He listens to me. He makes me feel young again. Mara's voice cracked. Mom, I think he's dangerous. Silence. Eleanor blinked slowly. Then why do I feel so safe with him? It wasn't just Mara. Other people noticed. Father Thomas at the church asked Eleanor if she was all right. Said she hadn't smiled during service in weeks. Her neighbor, Mrs. Fletcher, saw her crying in the garden one morning. When asked what was wrong, Eleanor said she just missed Frank. But Frank had been gone 5 years. So why now? Why tears after all this time? Then came the bruises. Small ones. Dark blue near her wrist. A purple blotch on her collarbone. She said she slipped on the stairs. Said she bumped into a doorknob. Classic excuses. Mara took photos. Quietly. Just in case. Eleanor's phone calls changed, too. Shorter. Rushed. She started saying things like, I can't talk right now. He's sleeping. He doesn't like me on the phone too long. Ava asked her grandmother if she was afraid. Eleanor paused. Too long. Then finally said, No, sweetheart. I'm just tired. But she wasn't tired. She was exhausted. Emotionally drained. Trapped. Behind the scenes, Devon was tightening the screws. He convinced Eleanor to cancel her landline. Told her it was a waste of money. He replaced her phone with a newer model, one linked to his own account. He changed the Wi-Fi password. Said it was for security. He even offered to help her manage her prescriptions. Suddenly, pills began disappearing. Or showing up at odd times. Eleanor started forgetting things. Missing appointments. Repeating herself. Mara suspected drugging. She begged her mother to see a doctor. Eleanor agreed. But the next morning, Devon took her car keys. Said he'd drive her instead. The appointment was never kept. Then came the diary. Eleanor kept it in her nightstand. Leather-bound. Private. One evening, while Devon was at the store, Mara found it, unlocked. She flipped through. The entries started bright. Hopeful. I think I'm in love. He makes me laugh like I haven't in years. Then, they shifted. He doesn't like my friends. He told me I'm lucky he stayed. Sometimes, I don't recognize myself. And then this. Last night. I was scared. I can't tell anyone. Who would believe me now? Mara took photos of every page. She went to the police. Spoke with Officer Danielle Harper. Danielle listened. Took notes. But the truth? There was no crime. No proof. No blood. No violence. At least, not visible. They filed a welfare check. That was all. And when officers visited the house, Eleanor smiled. Said everything was fine. Said they were planning a trip. And Devon? He offered coffee. Joked about overprotective daughters. They left 20 minutes later. No arrests. No follow-up. But one person didn't forget. Officer Harper. She stayed curious. Kept the diary photos on her desk. Something about Eleanor's eyes in those images. They weren't just tired. They were pleading. 3 days before Eleanor's death, Mara begged her one last time. She offered to take her away. Pack her bags. Drive her out of town. Eleanor held her daughter's hands. Tears welled in her eyes. He said if I ever left him, he'd make sure I'd never see Ava again. Mara froze. He said that. A slow nod. He doesn't mean it. He just gets upset. Mom, that's not love. Eleanor looked away. I know, but knowing doesn't always lead to action. Fear can be louder than truth. And sometimes, love becomes a cage. And Devin Marks? He was the one holding the key. Eleanor's house used to feel like home. Warm, lived in, full of framed memories and blooming plants. But slowly it changed. Curtains were always drawn now. Photos disappeared from shelves. The air grew colder. Still, too still. The woman who once played Chopin on Sunday mornings stopped playing altogether. The piano collected dust. Devin was everywhere. He controlled the thermostat. He controlled what shows they watched, what mail she opened, what groceries she bought. He kept a calendar, color-coded. Blue meant Devin's time. Red meant no visitors. Eleanor was allowed one yellow block a week. For her time. It wasn't love. It was lockdown. Neighbors began to notice. Mrs. Fletcher, next door, hadn't seen Eleanor outside in weeks. Not even to water her garden. Her roses withered. The grass turned brown. Even the mail began to pile up, until Devin bought a locked mailbox. He told the carrier to leave everything at the post office. Privacy reasons. It wasn't privacy. It was isolation. Then came the passwords. Devin installed a new alarm system. Fingerprint access only. He added security cameras. 3 outside, 2 inside. He said it was to protect Eleanor. From what? She was the one being watched. Even her phone, new, sleek, expensive, had an app she didn't install. One that mirrored her messages to another device. She didn't know, but Devin did. He began managing her medications. Organized them into boxes. Labeled them with cheerful stickers. Morning sunshine. Sleepy time. But Mara noticed the dosages were off. Her mother slurred her words during dinner. Lost her train of thought. Slept during the day. Eleanor had always been sharp. Now she forgot names. She even forgot Mara's birthday. That never happened before. The control tightened. Devin changed the locks. Told Eleanor her keys were too old. Said he'd keep the new set safe. She had to ask permission to leave. To drive. To make calls. Sometimes she didn't ask. Because sometimes she didn't remember she could. One night, she tried to leave. She packed a small bag. Cash, ID, a sweater. She waited until Devin was asleep. Tiptoed to the door. It was locked. Not just locked. Deadbolt. From the inside. She turned. He was standing behind her. Silent. Watching. Where are you going, Ellie? She froze. Just getting air. You don't need air. You need rest. He took the bag. She didn't try again. That week, Devin sold her car. Said she didn't need it anymore. Said it was better for the environment. The money went into his name. He began making online purchases. A drone. A sound system. Crypto investments. All from Eleanor's account. She didn't notice at first. Because she no longer had access. Mara visited less. It hurt too much. Every time she came, her mother seemed smaller. Fainter. Like a ghost in a house full of noise. She begged her to leave. But Eleanor only whispered, I'm scared of what he'll do. Mara offered to go to the police again. Eleanor begged her not to. He told me, if I ever talked, he'd hurt you. He said he's done it before. And maybe he had. Mara dug deeper. Found another woman. A widow in Missouri. Similar story. Younger man. Sudden romance. Rapid financial loss. That woman died in a car accident. Brake failure. Devin was never charged. In fact, he wasn't even listed in the obituary. But he had been there. For 3 months. Just like with Eleanor. Mara brought this to Officer Harper. Again. This time, Harper listened harder. But without physical evidence, without a confession or a crime, there was still nothing to hold him on. They needed a break. Something real. And then they got it. It came from the pharmacy. A sharp-eyed technician noticed a refill request. Oxycodone. Large quantity. Prescribed under Eleanor's name. But Eleanor hadn't picked it up. Devin had. Twice. The pharmacist called Mara. She rushed over. They pulled the logs. Devin had been forging Eleanor's signature. It was enough to open a case. A formal investigation began. But it would take time. And time was running out. Eleanor, meanwhile, grew weaker. She began wearing long sleeves, even in summer. Covered her arms. Her neck. When Mara hugged her, she felt bruises. But Eleanor said nothing. One night, Mara found a torn piece of paper in the trash. Eleanor's handwriting. If anything happens to me, it wasn't an accident. Mara kept it. She scanned it. Stored it in the cloud. But she didn't know what to do with it. Not yet. Eleanor made one final move. She called her lawyer, left a voicemail, said she wanted to revise her will, said she made a mistake, said it was urgent. The appointment was set. Tuesday morning, 9 a.m., but Eleanor never showed up. She never called. Because Monday night, something happened. Something no one saw coming. Not even Mara. Not even Officer Harper. Not even Devin, maybe. Or maybe, he planned it all along. It was a warm Monday evening. The kind of night where the air feels heavy, where silence hums louder than sound. Inside Eleanor's house, the lights were dim. One lamp glowed in the corner of the living room. The rest was shadow. She sat on the edge of the couch, hands trembling, heart pounding. She had made her decision. Tomorrow, she would go to the lawyer. Tomorrow, she would take back her name, her money, her life. But tonight, she had to survive. Devin was in the kitchen, chopping something, the knife rhythmically hitting the cutting board. He hummed to himself. Some old jazz tune Eleanor didn't recognize, didn't care to. She clutched a folded piece of paper in her lap. It was a letter, written by hand. For Mara. In it, she explained everything. Every bruise, every lie, every fear she never voiced out loud. She planned to give it to the lawyer in the morning. But something went wrong. Devin walked in, holding a glass of red wine. "Why are you up?" he asked, smiling too much. "Just thinking," Eleanor said softly. "About what?" She didn't answer. He sat beside her. Too close. She leaned away. I need some space tonight," she whispered. The smile vanished. "Space? Just for a bit. Maybe I'll sleep in the guest room." He laughed. "Dry? Cold? You don't need space, Eleanor. You need rest." He stood up. "I'll get your pills." That's when she said it. For words. Soft. But final. "I'm leaving tomorrow, Devin." He stopped in his tracks. Turned. "What did you say?" She stood up too. Taller than she'd felt in months. "I'm leaving. I've already spoken to my lawyer. It's done." Silence. Then the sound of glass shattering on the floor. He didn't say anything. Just stared at her. His eyes were something else now. Flat. Empty. Then he smiled again. "But it wasn't real." "That's funny," he said. "Because I was thinking the same thing." Later that night, neighbors heard a noise. A loud thud. Then nothing. One neighbor said it sounded like furniture being dragged. Another thought it was the dog barking down the street. No one called the police. Why would they? It was just a quiet night in a quiet town. The next morning, Mara waited at the law office. 9 a.m. No Eleanor. 9:15. Still no sign. She called. No answer. Called again. Straight to voicemail. Her gut turned. A slow, sick twist. By 9:30, she was in the car. Driving fast. Too fast. She reached the house. Knocked. Pounded. No one came. But the door was unlocked. That was the first red flag. Eleanor always locked the door. Always. The house was too quiet. Too still. Mara stepped inside. "Mom." No answer. "Mom, it's me. Are you okay?" She moved through the living room. Then the hallway. The guest room door was open. Empty. Then she saw it. The master bedroom door, slightly ajar. She pushed it open. And there, her mother, lying in bed. Eyes closed. Face pale. Still. Too still. Mara screamed. She ran to her. Shook her. But Eleanor didn't wake. There were no signs of trauma. No blood. Just a half-empty glass of water on the nightstand. And a bottle of pills. Oxycodone. The cap off. Spilled on the floor. Mara called 911, sobbing. Tried CPR. Begged. But it was too late. Eleanor Hartley was gone. The police arrived within minutes. So did paramedics. Officer Harper was one of the first on scene. She took one look at the room and said, "Something's not right here." There was no suicide note. No signs of distress. Just that eerie calm. And Devin? Gone. Vanished. His phone was off. His car missing. The neighbors hadn't seen him leave. No luggage. No goodbye. It was like he dissolved into the night. But he left something behind. A camera. Tucked under the bed. Harper found it during the second sweep of the room. Black. Dusty. But still working. Inside, one memory card. Harper plugged it in. And what she saw would change everything. Photos. Dozens. Maybe hundreds. Not of landscapes. Not of architecture. But of Eleanor. Sleeping. Eating. Standing at the window. Crying in the garden. Some photos were taken from inches away. Others through the window glass. One photo showed her reading in bed. Another, staring blankly at the wall. The dates stretched back months. He had been documenting her. Like a project. Like a trophy. The final photo? Time-stamped 11:52 p.m., the night before she died. It showed Eleanor lying in bed, eyes open, Devin's shadow in the corner of the frame. And the caption, yes, the camera allowed captions read. Last night. That was enough. Enough for Harper to issue a warrant. Enough for Mara to scream into the void. Enough for the whole town to realize. This wasn't a sad love story. It was a setup. A cold, calculated con. With one ending. Eleanor Hartley was gone. And Devin Marks was now a wanted man. Devin Marks had disappeared. No note. No calls. No goodbye. Just gone. By the time police declared Eleanor's death suspicious, Devin had a 20-hour head start. No credit card use. No cell phone ping. Nothing. It was like he vanished into the trees. But predators don't vanish. They hide. And Devin had hidden before. The investigation began that same day. Detective Danielle Harper took lead. She'd seen controlling partners before. But this was different. This was colder. Calculated. Inside the house, Harper noticed strange things. The cameras Devin installed? 3 were disconnected. 1 was still recording. It had footage. Footage of Devin watching Eleanor while she slept. Not once. Not twice. Dozens of nights. He would sit in a chair, face blank, staring, sometimes for hours. No talking. No touching. Just watching. Then came the bedroom footage. 11:48 p.m. Eleanor walks in. She looks tired. She sits on the edge of the bed. 11:51. Devin enters the frame. He's holding something. A glass. He hands it to her. She hesitates. Takes it. 11:55. She lies down. Devin leans over. Says something. No audio. Then he walks out. She never moves again. The autopsy confirmed the worst. Eleanor didn't just overdose. She was sedated. Forced. There were needle marks on her arm. Faint. But there. Not consistent with self-use. No history of injection. Toxicology showed 2 drugs. Oxycodone and lorazepam. Mixed together, they slowed her heart. Stopped her breath. Silent. Painless. Deadly. The pill bottle found on her nightstand? Fake label. Wrong pharmacy number. No prescribing doctor. A forgery. Likely printed at home. Investigators searched the house again. This time, deeper. In the attic, they found a locked metal box. Inside, documents. Passports. Driver's licenses. All fake. All Devin. Under different names. Max Reeves. Landon Cole. Ethan Vale. Same photo. Different lives. But that wasn't all. The most chilling discovery came from his laptop. Recovered from the bedroom drawer. Password protected. 3 hours of decryption later, it opened. Inside, one folder. Named simply. The list. 37 names. All women. Ages ranging from 58 to 83. Next to each name, dates. Locations. Notes. Some were crossed out. Some marked success. Some marked too suspicious. Eleanor Hartley's name was at the bottom. Next to it. Full access. Trust secured. Final stage, in progress. This wasn't a one-time crime. It was a pattern. A system. Devin targeted widows. Older. Lonely. Vulnerable. He studied them. Entered their lives. Earned their trust. Then drained their resources. In at least 2 other cases, the women had died. One by fall. One by accidental overdose. No one had connected the dots. Until now. A task force was formed. Harper contacted detectives across 4 states. One remembered Devin from a fraud case. Another recalled a suspicious death ruled accidental. Each story felt the same. Too neat. Too quiet. Now they all had a name. Devin Marks. Or whatever name he was using now. The FBI issued a warrant. National alert. Arrest on sight. His face was blasted across news stations. Murder suspect on the run. Last seen in North Carolina. Tips came flooding in. Someone saw him in a bus station in Virginia. Another claimed he was in New Mexico. None confirmed. But one call changed everything. A motel clerk in Chattanooga, Tennessee. She recognized him from the news. He checked in under the name Darren Field. Paid in cash. No luggage. Wore a baseball cap. She called police the moment he left the room. They arrived in 10 minutes. But it was too late. The room was empty. He had climbed out the bathroom window. Left behind only one thing. A Polaroid. Eleanor. Taken in the garden. She's smiling. The back of the photo reads, "They always smile before the end." Now, it was no longer just about fraud. It wasn't just manipulation. This was something else. Darker. A predator who hunted for pleasure. for power. And Eleanor was his final masterpiece. But Devin made one mistake. A detail he missed. The car he stole? It had GPS. The system had been disabled, but not erased. Investigators traced the last active ping. A rest stop near the Smoky Mountains. Teams moved fast. They searched cabins, hiking trails, abandoned campsites. And then, 2 days later, a fisherman found a backpack floating in a stream. Inside, Devin's fake IDs, a burner phone, and another camera. They thought maybe he drowned, but no body was found. Only footprints, leading deeper into the woods. Fresh. He was still out there. The hunt intensified. Drones, bloodhounds, local rangers. Every mile was scoured. Every cabin searched. But he was gone. Again. Like smoke through trees. Back in Somerset Falls, Mara stood in her mother's garden. The flowers were blooming again. Neighbors had helped restore it. The town had come together. But the house felt hollow. Quiet in the wrong ways. She held her mother's last note. The one from the trash. If anything happens to me, it wasn't an accident. She framed it. Hung it in the kitchen. Not as a memory, but as a warning. Eleanor's funeral was small. Family. Friends. Tears. A eulogy read by Mara. She loved deeply. Trusted fully. And in the end, that trust was taken from her. People wept. Even Officer Harper. Even the judge who had married Eleanor and Frank 50 years earlier. And as the sun set behind the hill, a single question echoed. Where was Devin now? And would he ever be caught? He was still alive. Somewhere out there. Devin Marks had become a ghost with a face. But even ghosts leave footprints. And now, the chase was closing in. 2 months passed. Then 3. The story faded from headlines, but not from memory. Especially not Mara's. She kept the investigation alive. Met with detectives. Sent emails. Posted flyers. Started a podcast, The Widow Files. Thousands listened. Some called in. Some cried. Some whispered things they were too afraid to write down. And then, a voicemail. From Colorado. The caller didn't leave a name. Just a breathy message. I think he's here. Same eyes. Same smile. Different name. The number was traced to a small town outside Boulder. Harper flew out the next day. At a coffee shop, she found the caller. Her name was Judith. 61. Newly widowed. She showed Harper a photo. There he was. Same dimples. Same camera. Now going by Nathan Cole. Harper's stomach turned. He'd met Judith at a grief group. He told her his wife died of cancer. Said he was just trying to find meaning again. She believed him. Until one night, she saw his phone screen flash. A photo of Eleanor. Not from the news. A private one. One that hadn't been released. Judith asked who it was. He said, nothing. Just stared. She didn't sleep that night. The next morning, he was gone. Room cleared. No forwarding address. But he left behind one thing. A single photo on her fridge. Of her. Smiling. Eyes closed. Now the case was national again. Every agency involved. Every channel watching. But Devin didn't stay gone for long. Because 3 weeks later, he slipped up. A gas station camera in Utah caught his face. He bought a drink. Looked straight at the lens. Smirked. It was like he wanted to be seen. Why? Harper had a theory. He wasn't just running. He was performing. Every new identity. Every woman. Every camera. This wasn't just about money. It was about power, control, and legacy. He wanted to be known. Not by name, but by impact. A ghost story that kept spreading. Mara received an envelope in the mail. No return address. Inside, a flash drive. She hesitated, then plugged it in. There were 2 files. One, a video. The other, a document titled confession.txt. Her hands shook. She clicked the video. Devin sat in a motel chair, wearing all black. Camera steady. If you're watching this, it means I've chosen to be found. But you'll never catch me. You'll never understand me. He smiled. But Eleanor did. For a moment. She saw me. And that was enough. He leaned in closer. You all see victims. I see beauty. Silence. Surrender. The screen went dark. The confession file? It listed every name. Every woman. Every lie. Some were short. Helen S. Met in Ohio. 2 months. Took her savings. Others detailed. Diane R. Smart. Cautious. Drugged her dog to gain access. But Eleanor's entry was the longest. She almost got away. Almost. She reminded me of my mother. The way she looked at me when I lied. At the end of the file, one final line. I am not sorry. Authorities traced the postmark. A remote area near the Nevada border. They sent drones, dogs, teams. And there in the hills, they found another cabin. Inside, empty, except for three things. A mattress, a single chair, and walls covered in photos. Women, sleeping, smiling, some crying. In the center, Eleanor. DNA confirmed he had been there. But again, no body, no footprints, just wind and dust. Like he was always one step ahead, or like he knew the rules better than anyone else. Then came the break. 6 months after Eleanor's death, a Canadian customs officer flagged a passport. The face looked familiar. Too familiar. It was him. Under a new name. New ID. But the eyes? Same. The man was detained. Held in a room. Fingerprinted. It matched. Devin Marks. Finally caught. The news broke instantly. Every headline screamed it. Murder suspect captured after international manhunt. Mara cried when she saw it. Collapsed to her knees. Not out of joy. Not out of relief. Just release. A breath she'd been holding for too long. The trial began 4 months later. Federal court. Tight security. He represented himself. Of course he did. He wore a suit. Smiled often. Spoke clearly. Never once said sorry. But the jury didn't need an apology. They needed the truth. And the evidence spoke louder than anything he ever said. The photos. The forged documents. The confession. The drug reports. But most of all, the stories of the women. Their families testified. Their pain filled the courtroom like fog. Mara was last. She read Eleanor's journal aloud. Every page. Every whisper. When she finished, the room was silent. Even Devin looked away. For the first time, the jury deliberated for less than 2 hours. Guilty. On all counts. Fraud. Assault. Premeditated murder. Sentenced. Life in prison. No parole. He didn't flinch. Just leaned forward and said, "She loved me, you know. In the end, she chose me." No one responded. Because by then, no one believed a single word. He was transferred to a federal facility in Colorado. Maximum security. No visitors. No cameras. His world now locked. A man who once controlled every second. Now watched. Every minute. Every day. But the story didn't end there. Because people still listen. To Mara's podcast. To Harper's interviews. To Eleanor's story. And every time someone hears it. Every time a widow gets a strange message. Every time a charming stranger says, "You look like someone I once loved." Someone remembers. Someone warns. Someone survives. Because of her. It's been 2 years. Too long. Heavy years since Eleanor Hartley was found in her bed. Still. Silent. Gone. But the story didn't die with her. It grew. It traveled. It changed people. Mara still lives in Somerset Falls. Same house. Same street. But nothing feels the same. She walks her daughter, Ava, to school each morning. She keeps Eleanor's piano dusted and clean. Sometimes she plays it. But never the same songs. Only soft notes now. Gentler ones. Ones that don't need words. She still runs the Widow Files podcast. Millions have tuned in. Some episodes are raw. Some angry. Some full of pain. But every voice matters. Every story shared is a warning. A lifeline. A thread tying victims together. Because predators don't always wear masks. Sometimes, they wear charm. They bring flowers. They say, "You're special." And that's what makes them dangerous. There's now a foundation in Eleanor's name. The Hartley Initiative. Its mission? To protect vulnerable seniors. To educate families. To provide legal support before it's too late. They've helped more than 300 women escape abusive situations. Some had bruises. Some didn't. But all had one thing in common. That quiet voice inside that whispered, "Something isn't right." Now, they listened to it. Officer Danielle Harper was promoted last year. She doesn't take much credit. She always says, Eleanor helped solve her own case. She wrote it down. She documented it. She didn't let him silence her. And that's true. Without Eleanor's diary. Without her note in the trash. Without her voice. Devin might still be out there. As for Devin Marks, he spends 23 hours a day alone. A cell with no mirrors. No camera. No audience. Exactly what he feared most. He filed 2 appeals. Both denied. He teaches drawing now. To other inmates. His work is neat. Technical. But cold. No heart. No feeling. Just lines. That's all he ever really cared about. Control. Precision. The illusion of perfection. But now, he's forgotten. And he knows it. There was a letter, sent to Mara last winter. No return address. Inside, only one thing. A sketch of Eleanor, sitting in her garden, head turned, eyes looking off into the distance. No signature. But she knew. She burned it. Didn't even show Ava. Some things don't deserve to live on. Eleanor's grave is simple. A stone bench under a maple tree. The inscription reads, "She chose love. She chose trust. And when that trust was broken, she chose truth." People visit. Leave flowers. Letters. Stories. Some come just to sit. To feel safe. To say goodbye to someone they never met. And maybe that's the power of stories. They don't always save lives. But they echo. They ripple. They teach. They warn. Today, Mara ends every podcast episode the same way. She leans into the mic, takes a breath, and says, "If something feels wrong, speak. Write. Leave. Fight. Don't wait to be believed. Believe yourself first. And if you can't, then call me. Because you're not alone. You never were." And now, listener, maybe you're wondering, how could someone so smart, so strong, fall for someone like Devin? How could it happen? Here's how. It doesn't start with violence. It starts with validation, with compliments, with attention. It starts when you're tired, when you're grieving, when you miss being seen. And by the time it feels wrong, you're already in the cage. But Eleanor proved something. Even inside that cage, even in the darkest hour, she reached for light. She left a trail. And in the end, she spoke. So now we speak for her. We carry her name. We honor her truth. And we ask one final question. Who else is out there? And will we recognize the next Devin Marks? Before he knocks on someone else's door? Subscribe if you haven't. Share this story. Because silence protects no one. And Eleanor Hartley will never be silent again.